Hey, you know, Sam, this morning I had a bit of a experience where for once in my life, violence was the answer.
You woke up and chose violence?
Just a little bit. Like there's a little bit of a cat fight. Like there's a neighborhood cat harassing one of mine.
An actual cat, not like a woman.
No. Just an actual cat. You know, reach for the Nerf gun, fire a couple pot shots, scare it off. But you know, it's not like when you're in D&D. Like every day in D&D, violence is always the answer. So I got to live the dream for all of 2 seconds.
Living the dream.
Low chance of player death. That's good.
Yeah. Well, I went a little hard on this one because I pulled out the Nerf gun that my kids don't like me using on them because it hits a little too hard. It was that part of that Ultra series they came out with where those things go insanely far, but they hit just a little bit harder.
As child services, you got to get that, Ryan? Are you okay?
They found me. Oh, damn.
Pretty funny.
It wouldn't be the first time that they've showed up at my door.
Wouldn't be the first time?
Well, the code enforcement officer in our town hates us because we have goats. So he keeps reporting us for it.
That makes you cooler than everybody else. Goats are cool.
Man.
I know. It's just
if they were geese, I'd have to leave.
I mean, if we had geese, we wouldn't have that kind of problem. You step foot on someone's property and they got a proper attack goose. Ain't no doing right there. Those things are vicious, dude.
What's your call word for their attack?
I don't know.
I've got a split lip. That's what's happening right now. I didn't punch anybody.
Oh no.
My lip just broke. Speaking of violence.
Yeah.
Pro tip for those of you listening, don't camp in 30-degree weather without chapstick.
That sounds about right. Yeah, it is getting to that time of year for camping, though. My wife is just super hyped for that. So
I love it.
I've never been.
We'll see how it goes. We'll have to take you camping sometime. Show you the great outdoors. It's everything that D&D told you it would be. It's
Are you gonna murder me?
you make a campfire. You make a survival check, and you get a full night's rest.
When do we do our ritual sacrifice?
I don't know about that part, but certainly no bugs will interrupt your rest, and you'll wake up very, very refreshed. All your spell slots back.
Oh yeah, no new diseases or anything.
No.
Speaking of camping and gamers, so what I do is twice a year, I've got about 20 people, and we go camping for an entire week, and it's called Camping for Gamers. And
Sounds amazing.
It's amazing. It's all we do is eat meat, drink adult beverages, and play games. And it's
nice.
What's great about it is, you get out there and there's nothing else to do. Which
really,
if you're adulting like I am, it's hard to get in games. Hard to get in those stacks of board games, those RPGs you've been trying to get going. And when you're just out there and it's just like, this is why we're here for the whole week, and it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely,
playing at night in the dark, playing an RPG at night at the dark is fun too.
Ooh, that'd be perfect for a scary kind of a existential horror type game like Call of Cthulhu.
Oh man, I want to play that one so bad.
All right,
Call of Cthulhu's fun.
I think we can start the show. The player starring. And welcome to Dungeons and Talkshows, the talk show that brings you dungeon news and homebrews. I'm your host, Orion.
And I'm your host, Sam, here to bring you the latest monster for this week.
And in studio with us, or digital studio, I suppose, is our wonderful guest, Craig, from the Third Floor Wars. How are you doing, Craig?
Couldn't be happier. Happy to be on.
We're happy to have you.
I've been excited for this all week,
You've been talking about it for a while.
It's kind of a mixed bag when we get guests on. Like, I never know what to expect. I remember when we had Tim Van Dalen on, we were kind of like betting on what his accent would be because we didn't know what to expect from that time zone. Incidentally, like he's got like a whole 2 best-selling books on DM's Guild. So congrats to Tim.
Very cool.
The OGL debacle has treated him well.
Yeah, it kind of came and went, didn't it?
Yeah, evidently. Like Project Black Flag is kind of like for all the news and stuff that's been stirred up by that. They made all their stuff like 5e compatible, which is pretty neat. And I was reading up on some stuff about a luck system that they were adding to it. That was kind of cool because you see that in a bunch of other tabletops and RPGs. Like, okay, cool. I kind of always wanted a little bit of a luck in my type stuff.
Yeah, you see luck handled all kinds of different ways. Like speaking of Call of Cthulhu has got a kind of a luck stat, and you can spend it.
That's
right?
true.
So you can have, if you have 40 luck and you miss a roll by 5, you can spend some of your luck to add 5 to your roll. I think my favorite luck mechanic, though, has to be in a game called Broken Compass, which is kind of a pulp Indiana Jones type RPG, and you don't have hit points. And the reason you don't have hit points is because nobody kills the hero. What you have is luck. So what happens is you slowly start spending your luck, and at some point our hero runs out of luck, and that's when you're taken out of the game. So it's kind of a neat take on luck, and especially super fits the genre of pulp hero.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to try something like that sometime, because it kind of covers that part. Like if you look in D&D, for example, when they're talking about hit points, luck is included in your hit points, but like everyone just forgets that. It's like, okay, it's there, but no one really thinks about it.
Yeah, I mean the abstraction. I mean hit points come from the early days, right? From the beginnings of it, and it's a layover from wargaming, and it's this kind of this weird abstraction, and it's very interesting to see how newer games have finally started to shed hit points, which I like. So for example, like Powered by the Apocalypse has the concept of harm and conditions. And you're starting to see that even with games, coming out of Free League, where, things are extrapolated out. Damage is extrapolated out. And it's not some sort of abstract number where really only one hit point matters. And that's the last one, where, you start to wear down. Like, for example, in Forbidden Lands, your stats are your hit points. So as you slowly start taking damage, your stats go down. You become less effective over time, which I think is an interesting take on it.
I like that. Like, I think with some of the new systems that are kind of being developed right now and released in response to the OGL stuff, I'm hoping that we see a little bit more of that kind of thing, because it was lightly touched on in previous editions of D&D, and like a lot of people seem to be kind of extrapolating their new systems to be similar to 5e. So I'd like to see some kind of drifting that way, because like they're in. I can't remember specifically off the top of my head, but I do know that there were some creatures that would do damage to specific stats.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
Like an intellect devourer.
I was just about to say, yeah, that's a great example. They just fuck your intelligence.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then you've got games like Into the Odd, which abstract out damage and combat a little bit differently as well. So if you've ever played Into the Odd, there's no roll to hit. It's just roll to damage. So everything hits, and then depending on your armor, which your armor encompasses your agility, what you're wearing and everything, that decides whether a hit does damage or not. So yeah, to your point, Orion, there's all kinds of different ways to do this, and it's exciting to start seeing games kind of shed the old wargaming hangover. That and I'm not saying damage in Dungeons and Dragons is a bad thing, but once you start playing with some of the different ways to handle that type of thing, it can make combat far more interesting.
Oh, absolutely. That's why when it comes to DMing, I'm just like, I'll take a little bit from various different games that I've played, and my game style is a very bastardized version of like 6 or 7 different games all mashed into one.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, you've played in my games. You know this. It's
No,
just
I get a lot of my ideas from the books that I listen to.
I can't blame you. Like, you can always find good ideas from a book. Like, I believe Matt Colville like writes a lot of books, and like he's going to take like the back and forth with ideas and stuff. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're coming up with their own system now in response to the OGL.
They are, yeah.
I'm looking forward to that because I've always saw Matt as kind of a very good developer when it comes to design and stuff, and he's always been relatively reliable with giving new advice to newer players and DMs. So it's like, okay, I'm willing to look at what he's got cooking up, you know. Anyway, Sam, what do you got for the monster this week?
Oh man, this is a special one, you know. I don't know how much you guys know about the false Hydra or how much the community knows about the false Hydra, but this one's kind of piqued my interest for a while now.
Well, I will say the false Hydra is one of my favorites.
Yeah, this will be one of our first community creatures to really go over. So, no one truly knows when or how the false Hydra came to be. It is an abomination seen by few and survived by fewer. Some say that it is similar to a plant and that it grows from the ground like a sprout with no seed, that it germinates on lies and dishonesty.
That's a whole lot of hype right there off right off the starting of the description.
Just the story and the lore that there is behind this is very, very ominous.
Yeah, it kind of strikes me as kind of like a SCP situation.
Oh man, doesn't it?
What's SCP? I don't know what SCP is.
Oh, okay. Allow me to explain.
Resident SCP expert over here.
I love SCP. So SCP basically is this story world where there's a organization where they secure, contain, and protect the world against anomalies and anomalous entities. So anything that's supernatural, anything otherworldly, anything with abilities, stuff like that.
And is it a fantasy setting? Is it a movie? Is it a game? What is it?
It's not really a game. Well, I mean, there are games, but it is a author-written universe, basically.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of communal, really.
Yeah, anyone can go in and create like an entry, a data log, a research, report, anything.
Yeah, that's something I always found interesting about it, because it's kind of foreign to me in that regard, because it's almost reminiscent of some of those more text-based type game things where like people create data entries for their characters or like interactions, and then they just kind of like log it all in like a chat log or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So Sam, we were talking about Call of Cthulhu, right? And you're saying how you want to play it. Get rid of that idea. Mm-hmm. So after hearing that you like this SCP concept, the game you need to go buy,
right?
And if you don't like it, I'll pay you back, is called Delta Green. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
So Delta Green is originally came from Call of Cthulhu. It was an accessory, not accessory, like a supplement. Thank you. Jeez, hard words. It was a supplement originally for Call of Cthulhu, but has since become its own game and been its own game for several decades now. Oh. But the concept is all your players are government workers, like could be postal workers or FBI agents or work for the CDC or something. But there is a secret underground organization called Delta Green. Okay. And basically started around Roswell and the Lovecraftian Innsmouth incidents, where the government found out, there's some crazy shit going on. And we need to squash it. But we also need to make sure that the public never finds out about it. So you're a government agent and you're called up at times for what they call a night at the opera, which means we've got an operation for you. And it's clandestine. It's got all of that concepts that you just talked about, where SCP, where you are brought together as these agents of the government to go and not only take care of the threat, but also make sure that it's covered up. and it's a really, really neat kind of take on the Call of Cthulhu concept. You should check it out.
Yeah, this sounds exactly like the SCP thing. And, I was so excited when Orion told me, what your whole deal was with the horror and the Call of Cthulhu and all that stuff. I was so excited. I was like, finally, a kindred spirit.
Oh, yeah. Horror is by far my favorite RPG genre, by far.
Especially since I'm running the Grim Hollows stuff right now. I'm definitely in the mindset of like eldritch horrors, deeper, dark, deeper undertones and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying the game so far, but I definitely think we could get a lot out of a game like you were talking about like that, because being able to like it eliminates how am I going to get the party together? You're all government workers.
Exactly.
Done. You got a mission. Done. Go do the thing.
Yeah, and it solves two problems, which is interesting. So Call of Cthulhu is notoriously a deadly system, right? And the big joke is you start a Call of Cthulhu campaign, and like 5 sessions in, you're trying to figure out, okay, I need a new character. Someone ask the bartender if they'll help, and I'll play the bartender, because you just you're trying to figure out how to come up with new characters because your characters keep dying, that's a little bit much. It's not that bad, but that's what it's notorious for. And this is an interesting solve for that, right? Which is, this is a government operation, but it's secret. So if a character dies, 5 sessions, 6 sessions in, they just call in a new agent. They call in, Agent Stevenson, who works for, the farming department, or works for tobacco,
right.
and they show up and you've got a new character. It's an interesting solve for that problem.
It's super interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Because you lose one character, just roll up a new one. Hi, I'm Stuart, and I'm from the EPA.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, we haven't had too many players die in our game yet. We did have our roguish character die in session 4, something like that.
Yeah, to that 5-headed goose.
Yeah,
which brings me back to an attack goose is very dangerous.
Attack goose, come full circle, man.
Real goose are very dangerous. I'm not a religious man, but if you want to prove to me that there is such a thing as Satan, easiest way to do it is to say, explain geese. And I'll be like, oh yeah, maybe there is something else bigger, because they are spawn.
Oh yeah. So speaking of spawn, so going back to the false Hydra, others say that it is almost like it's a vicious fungus, a mindless life form that knows nothing beyond devouring and surviving. Some say they are the last vestiges of a curse from a fallen goddess, who sent them as punishment to the mortals, who so conveniently turn their backs on inconvenient truths. In truth, scholars have no better idea. The few who believe in and attempt to study this creature have found little information about it, only aware of three things for certain. The false Hydra sings, the false Hydra grows, and the false Hydra eats.
It's pretty straightforward. Right.
So, Sam, do you have a sense of why it's called a false Hydra? I'm trying to.
So, from what I understand, it's driven by this sense of dishonesty and this, lies and all this stuff. So I guess that kind of makes sense why it's the false Hydra. It kind of takes the form of a Hydra, as it's not a dragon,
Yeah, so it's deceptive by nature and drawn to deception, so it kind of feeds on that.
Got it.
I think it takes the form of a Hydra because that's a known, terrifying creature. I guess also its nature kind of has the whole consuming and heads thing that I'll get into in a minute.
Yeah. I've run one before, and it's one of the reasons why I always find them just fascinating, because as far as homebrew monsters go, I feel like you could just plot this one down in almost any game system or setting for the most part.
Right.
And you're generally going to give that existential dread. You're going to have a terrifying creature that's going to... It's a mystery. It's going to be multiple sessions worth of dealing with this thing, because it's just not as simple as you go about your day. No, you got this thing manipulating memories, people, the town. It's a whole ordeal. You
could even have a situation where your party, they're all from the same village, and they all had a false Hydra show up, and in its baby state, and it's a consistent problem, and through the whole campaign, it grows and gets old, becomes an elder, like, and then eventually you got to deal with it.
Hmm.
I think that'd be a pretty cool situation.
Well, it sounds like the deceptive nature of it is you could really sprinkle it through the whole campaign and have it show up, and they're like, at times they're like, oh, this is the false Hydra. We can tell it's the false Hydra. And other times they encounter something else and they immediately suspect it's the false Hydra, but it turns out it's not. You could get a lot of mileage out of that.
Oh, absolutely. Tons of mind games.
Yeah. Especially with its whole, abilities of like, you're not really allowed to perceive it. Like, it's very interesting. So, getting into the description here, tell you what this thing actually looks like. It is estimated to have a pale, fleshy body, multiple bald heads with gaping mouths, and barren black eyes. It has elongated humanoid hands and lengthy snake-like necks. However, some depictions have it with no hands and a serpent-like body. It is ashen white creature, only discolored when it consumes its victims and is drenched in blood. Considered a large creature, it is roughly 10 by 10 feet and has several heads, increasing the amount over time. As it matures, it gets increasingly more prominent and grows more heads. Supposedly, it never stops growing, reaching huge and even gargantuan if left unchecked.
Interesting. Another side thing about it is they like to burrow, so they're kind of like a underground thing to deal with. Like when I was running it, they had an entire tunnel network where it was keeping its feeding ground for the bodies. It would pop up in little holes in various houses all through the town. And this actually upset my brother's character at the time because he was playing a kobold. And everybody knew that something was wrong. There were kobolds nearby, and there's little tunnels popping up everywhere, but they didn't know exactly why. So they're kind of blaming him and getting kind of prejudiced about it. Which led to him going on an entire tangent of wanting to go back to the necromancer he made a deal with and be like, hey, listen, we got to genocide an entire town. They're all racist.
Oh, no.
It got worse with the fact that the deal he made with the necromancer is he wanted to put red armbands on all of the zombies in the army. Of like, slow down, Hitler. Slow down.
Yeah, that's ooh.
Nice. As expected, I suppose. So let's really get into it. What is a false Hydra? So this homebrew monster has gotten traction in various communities and forums. Yes, a homebrew monster may confuse some due to its appearance in many D&D TikToks and YouTube channels. This means that it is not an official monster made by Wizards of the Coast. Instead, it was made by Goblin Punch. I went to their website, and apparently Goblin Punch is just a homebrew forum, homebrew community. They seem to have some interesting things in there. So It is a creepy-looking, paranoia-inducing monster that is practically non-existent, yet at the same time creeps around the back of your mind. This monster can remove itself from your memories and walk around almost invisible. Imagine walking into a town full of empty houses. The animals randomly freak out, and when you encounter a few locals still living there, they tell you that this is all normal. Have you ever tripped over nothing? Or perhaps felt like you bumped into someone, but no one was there? There was a presence nearby or had moved past. This explains that this is not a ghost, but a giant monster that hides in your memories.
Very much like the silence from Doctor Who.
See, I know you brought this up earlier, but I don't know anything about Doctor Who.
That's terrible.
I'm a degenerate. I'm sorry. Never seen it.
No, it just means you've got something to look forward to.
It's on my list, but there's just so much.
My wife's been binge watching it like crazy.
Who's your favorite Doctor?
I'm thinking. I'm pretty sure it's like Matt Smith. I think
that's a good one.
David Tennant and Matt Smith just kill it as the Doctor.
Yeah, honestly. They do.
And she finally got up to the point where they put that a female Doctor in the show, and it's like, I'm not opposed to there being a female Doctor, but like whatever they did to the writing.
Yeah, the issue with that was the writing. She was great. I thought she was outstanding. But I think there was a drastic drop in the quality of the writing for her run, which is too bad.
Yeah, it really is unfortunate because like I'm watching, I'm like, okay, she's got the mannerisms down. That's good. I mean, some of her lines are a little off. That's you'll notice like a little little key things that she says or does that are off, but it's mostly because the writing, like, okay, the doctor's supposed to be kind of a dominating personality. He takes charge of every situation. And then you're seeing situations where the doctor's now taking a back seat, and it's just like, why?
Yeah, and she had like 17 companions, which I think was a mistake.
That's just too many.
Yeah, there's just a couple bad choices there, and it's too bad because, again, I think that the actor was great. I thought she was phenomenal.
My wife's biggest complaint is they didn't make her ginger for the role, because like the running gag is that the doctor always wanted to be a ginger woman at some point in one of his reformations. So just give it to him, you know.
Fair enough, I guess. Who wouldn't want to be a ginger woman? Sure. So, getting to the ecology of a false Hydra here. So, the false Hydra eats flesh, of course, and its favorite prey, obviously, is humanoids. In the beginning of its life, while it only has one head, though eating presents a challenge, to eat it must stop singing. Thus, the first stage of a false Hydra infestation is often the longest, as it waits for a lone victim to drag away into a basement, a sewer, a small cave, or a small cave it has excavated for this purpose. In any normal circumstances, the victim of a false Hydra would have family or friends who would notice their absence, but the false Hydra song massages their mind, smoothing the wrinkles in their thoughts. It makes you a smooth brain, basically.
Good wording, though. I like that phrasing.
That's all I can think about as I read that. Smooths out the wrinkles, iron out the kinks, you know?
Yeah, well, that kind of language just shows that it's really building up to something.
Yeah. The false Hydra's victims become a part of this creature, and thus the creature's song erases all memories of him. Their absence will not be noticed. They are forgotten. And as more and more join the false Hydra, the more it grows. The more its neck stretches and the more its influence grows.
Yeah, it can get pretty crazy with that.
Yeah,
as well as like I really like playing up the angle as a DM that the Hydra just kind of is taking all these different people into itself. So you see some that are intrinsically more like maybe goblin or elvish or humanoid.
Maybe faces you recognize.
Oh, but they wouldn't recognize them.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But
I mean,
maybe
it's the song, maybe.
If you can end the song, then yes.
Yeah. So, the older the false Hydra gets, the more heads it grows. The more heads it has, the more careless it becomes, as it can afford to have one head stop singing to eat. As the number of heads grows, so does the number of missing townsfolk, obviously, the number of inconsistent memories floating around the survivors. The more mature the false Hydra, the more necks stretch up above the rooftops. Thick, pale tree trunks topped with bulging, bony heads and unhinged jaws, filled with dagger-like teeth. When the false Hydra is fully grown, usually once it's approaching 10 heads, the next stage of its life cycle begins. The false Hydra ensures that there is at least one survivor for each head it has grown. Then it begins to sing a new song.
I remember reading on that part.
Right. This is where
Craig, have you ever been in anything that has involved a false Hydra?
No, and this is where you're going to go, why did we invite Craig onto this podcast? This is what's about to happen. I haven't played D&D since Redbox. I didn't even play a D&D, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, well, one, I think I'm older than both of you combined. But when I played D&D, the old mold was known as the Moldvay D&D. And then soon after, I moved into things like Call of Cthulhu, GURPS by Steve Jackson Games and things like that. And I've played D&D twice in the last 30 years.
Oh wow.
Honestly, there's just so many games out there. I completely get it. Like
my
very first tabletop book that I had was a copy of GURPS, actually. Yep. I lent it to a friend and never saw it again.
Yeah, so to answer your question, I've never met a false Hydra, but some of the concepts behind this false Hydra are things that I really love, which is the not straightforward encounter, right? Where players are going to have situations where the characters can't just draw swords, grab a spell slot, and just go in and Leroy Jenkins, right? That there's going to be layers of deception, layers of questions. It sounds like some investigative aspects could be added to the game. So the concepts behind this false Hydra are right up my alley.
Yeah, it seems very, very Call of Cthulhu, very Lovecraftian horror.
Yes.
Yeah, I would even say that, referencing back to the Doctor Who thing earlier, it would be perfectly at home in the Doctor Who tabletop.
No question.
Which I've seen the books around, and I know some people that have played it. I want to try it, but like I always feel like, oh, if you get that at the table, isn't everyone just going to try to be a Time Lord? It's like when you're playing Star Wars, everyone wants to be a fucking Jedi.
Yeah, very true.
There's some good pedigree behind the designers of the most recent incarnation of the Doctor Who game. I've not played it myself, but I've heard good stuff. But it's a universe. Like, I'm funny when it comes to genres, right? There's some universes I don't have any interest in playing it, and for whatever reason, Doctor Who's one of them. But man, give me Star Wars or Star Trek, and I'm all in. Let's go. But it'll vary.
I think that's the beauty of the false Hydra. Like, I feel like it's just so transient that you could just slip it into anything. Because if you got any level of mystery solving or like combat, like it kind of takes combat and flips it around. Because like, oh, it's not, like you said, it's not straightforward, and you got to kind of work it a little bit.
So this new song dominates the weak-minded and psychotic, while still subjecting others to the mind-numbing forgetfulness of the first song. Each survivor is given a head, which continues to sing. They all go their separate ways. Each victim is sent to a nearby town. Along the way, the singing continues. Any who pass them on the road are only temporarily taken under the false Hydra song, just long enough to forget that they saw the lone traveler. When the carriers arrive in a new town, they find a spot to bury themselves in their head. When they do, the larva uses the carrier as its first victim until it has grown enough to resurface. Then, the cycle begins anew in a new town. So that is how they spread.
There's a lot of potential there.
That's horrifying in a great way.
Definitely sets in motion, even if you find a Hydra that's spread this way, it'll start out with two heads. It's not going to have that hard of a time, growing faster.
I would say that if you do it that way, you might very well be able to turn what would normally be like maybe 2 to 5 sessions into an entire campaign that could span a year plus. Is like wiping out the false Hydra. It's like, okay, if you start with just a little one in a small town, well, this thing's been spreading for a while, so you have to hunt them all down. And the process of doing so is not simple.
What I'm imagining too could be really neat is, I like that idea of the memory wipe that happens when you encounter one of these travelers, these larva carriers. And I think it'd be interesting if you had one member of the party encounter and interact with one of these travelers, right? And for some reason, the other another member of the party is either far away or not close enough to hear the song, and then that person who was not subject to the song comes up and goes, I want to talk to you about the guy you were speaking with. And you turn to the other player going, you don't remember.
Right.
You never talked to anybody. You have no idea. You have no idea what Dave is talking about right now.
Right.
And like, ooh, that could be like, so even at a meta level, even though the other player knows what's happening, like how crazy would that be as far as party dynamics to have, one member of the party's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right. It kind of sprouts that suspicion of like, what do you mean you don't like?
Exactly. It could be cool.
Yeah. The memory stuff, like as soon as you say, yeah, you don't remember any of it. And it's just like hooked. Just that right there, it pulls you right in.
Yeah. Right. You're like, oh, why not? What's going on?
Yeah, it's it's a monster that comes with its own hook and setup. It does so much that it's just massive, and it's amazing how it's evolved over the years in the community. Like I think it's hard to find like any concrete stat block for it.
Yeah, I did find one example that kind of went through each of the life stages, and I can go over it a little bit when I get to that section. Yeah, right. That is coming up shortly. So, the false Hydra begins its life cycle as a head, with roughly the same proportions as an average human was. This head, however, is pale and hairless, with wet eyeless sockets and large mouth filled with broad, flat teeth. It finds itself buried deep beneath the earth near a settlement, and it grows. As it grows, it develops a fleshy, flabby torso, which serves as a root. It is from this root that all further heads grow. The first head slowly pushes its way up through the dirt, breaking through the soil in the basement beneath the stairs, or beneath the brush around the house, through a broken cobblestone in the street, blah blah blah. And then, when it has reached the surface, it sings.
All right.
So, blah, blah, blah. Right, and then moving into the growth stages here, you have the larva. So, like I said, the first stage is the head. It relies on the broken mind of its host to carry it to a new town to gain its growth. It is capable of maintaining a hum, which serves to continue the domination of its host, as well as disguising itself from any who might encounter it on the road. Instead of seeing a shaken, broken person carrying a nightmarish, decapitated head, they would perhaps see a haggard old beggar moving from town to town to the next, carrying their only possessions in their arms. Sorry, I can't read. Carrying their only possessions in their arms. The larva's song is weak and easily broken, and intense scrutiny of the travelers often revealed the true nature of what is happening.
The interesting thing there is that a lot of it's predicated on the song. So if you ever have like a deaf character, you can kind of like use them as a tool for the whole thing. Like, oh, there's a deaf beggar in town, and this person is just freaked the fuck out.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah. If the players ever need more exposition than normal, and or like say, yeah, you'll end up having lots of situations where a common one is someone will have like stuff carved into their arms. It's like, oh, I got this weird dog bite on my arm. I don't know where it came from. And you look at their arm, it's just carved in with a knife. Run. Like,
it's just right, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's a little more than a dog bite, buddy.
Like, what the
Yeah, like when I ran it, you sprinkle those kind of things everywhere and let the players run wild with it after that, because the situations just generate their own RP. It got to a point where one of my players was talking to an innkeeper, and his wife, apparently he doesn't have a wife, they had a portrait on the wall behind him, a wedding picture, rings, like the whole shebang in the picture. And they're like, oh, hey, nice picture of you and your wife. He's like, I don't know who the fuck that is. Eventually, through that campaign, the stoner druid of the party decided to buy the painting.
What wife?
Yeah. It got pretty crazy real quick.
Sounds pretty funny. So, stage 2 of the false Hydra. The second stage becomes a pupil, or a pupa. This stage begins after the creature has been carried to a new town, buried and feasted on the host that brought it. This stage has only one head. Oh, okay. So, the carrier brings it to the new town, and then the head devours the body, grows its own body as the root, and then starts to sprout its head. It's insane.
Okay.
That's okay. I got it.
That makes sense.
Right. I thought it had like 2 heads, but it devours the body. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a slow burn there. Like it did mention earlier, there's very divisive in the early stages.
Mm-hmm. This stage only has one head and is the longest stage in the cycle, as they wait for the best moment to be able to capture their prey. When the false Hydra has devoured enough townfolk to grow more heads, enters the next stage, the young false Hydra. The third stage has developed multiple heads, usually 2 to 4, and is beginning to be less cautious when it eats, as it can often have one head continue its song, while the other devours the victim. It is still young, however, and tends to keep stores of flesh in its subterranean body, so that it might regrow heads in case of emergency. And this is where we get to the interesting ones. The fully grown false Hydra.
Yeah, that's like the towering over all the buildings and shit, right?
Right, exactly. So the fourth stage is when it becomes a true menace to adventurers, having grown enough heads anywhere from 5 to 8, and stored enough beneath the ground to be able to grow back its heads as a number of times. The false Hydra's heads have grown to a thick, almost tree trunk-like appendages that can survey the settlement from above the rooftops. At this stage, it is merely waiting to further thin down the numbers in the town before advancing to its final stage. Do you want me to go over the stats for these? I can.
I'd be interested, Sam, if you don't mind. I'd be interested to hear mechanically how they handle the song.
I didn't want them to be too much. Yeah. So, the larva, the pupa, and they all have this ability, but it kind of stays consistent throughout those stages. So this says, sightless song. The false Hydra emits a horrible, nightmarish howl to all creatures within 500 feet. Any humanoid that can hear the song and has not been subjected to a song of domination is incapable of noticing the false Hydra while it can hear the song. If they have, they remain under the effects of the song of domination for as long as they can hear any sort of song from a false Hydra. Not hearing a false Hydra song for more than 10 minutes in one day allows the victim to make a DC 12 intelligence saving throw to break the effect. Humanoids under the effect of the song do not realize they can hear the song. The false Hydra can continue to sing the song for as long as it wants, but must stop singing if it makes a bite attack.
So it's interesting. Mechanically, they're saying there is no, like, you hear the song, you're in, right? You're done. So it sounds like mechanically, your only chances is if you have a certain respite from the song, then potentially you can make a save. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And mechanically, it's like, it'll happen periodically when it goes to feed. So those will be the times where you can kind of like terrorize the players a little bit. Like they see something in the window, or somebody that has seen it is just kind of like snaps to, and they're like, oh shit. And they're just trying to warn them, but like not exactly sure. It's kind of like rambly, maybe.
Something interesting I see here, looking at each of these stat blocks. Only the larva has a limited telepathy ability. This says the false Hydra larva can magically communicate simple ideas, emotions, commands, and images telepathically with any creature within 100 feet of it that can understand the language and has been subjected to a song of domination. So it can communicate with the body that's carrying its head.
I think that might be just kind of like a bait thing to lure people in.
Right. Well, as it has the head that's carrying it to a new village, it's telling it where to go, what emotions to convey, commands, things like that.
Makes sense.
So Sam, I thought you had a really good point with the deaf character and the chances of.
Oh, that was Orion.
Sorry, Ryan. Sorry. So you got to take credit for stuff like that, man. Because when you edit this podcast, we can make sure it wasn't Orion's idea; it was yours.
Fantastic idea.
But I was thinking about that. I'm like, the chances of us having a player necessarily that's deaf isn't really long. But now I'm hearing you, get into the mechanics of this. So here's the not the adventure seed, but kind of a seed that I'm thinking of is come into a town, right? The party comes into a town. And just like every town in D&D, there's a problem, right? And this is presented to the players as, we have people going missing. We have children going missing. We have people going missing. We can't figure out why they're here, then they're not here. And they start the investigation, and there is this vagrant in the town who, you talk about a bunch of details. They have a hobbled foot. They're old, and you just kind of throw in there, that they're deaf, but talk about a few other ailments and things like that. And this is the only person in town that knows what the hell's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He's known as like the town crazy man or something.
Exactly. And as they start investigating this, and they just, a dead end after dead end after dead end because of this Hydra song. And suddenly they start to, somebody in the party is going to maybe go, maybe crazy Jimmy over there isn't so crazy. And maybe you can drop some more hints. You don't have to be strategic about this because players are dumb. You have to hit them over the head with it. But maybe they'll figure out that it has to do with the fact that this guy is deaf, and that can end up being the secret that lets them uncover the mystery. There's a lot of fuel here.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen things done with players in the past where they do there'll be like notes, like maybe they'll question people and there'll be notes that the person has written, but no recollection of it. A very common thing I've seen in the community for plot hooks to get players into the town is like a friend or like a family member or just a common quest giver is like, oh, hey, I need you to check out the things over here. I haven't heard back from maybe X, Y, or Z person. And you get there, and as far as that person's concerned, they don't maybe that person's not there at all and no one has heard of them, or maybe the quest giving person is in the town and they're like, I don't know, but that's my handwriting, but I don't know anything about this note. Why are you here?
Right.
Mystery stuff.
Yeah, I love
that's cool stuff right there.
Right. And see, looking at the rest of this sheet, when you get to the young false Hydra, it's when it gets its ambush ability. Oh no, it's not. I'm lying. When you get to the pupa is when it gets its ambush ability, and surprise attack and things like that.
Okay, so it's got to be sneak at that stage.
Right. The young false Hydra gets the multiple heads ability.
Yeah.
It's when it has 4 more heads. The young false Hydra has advantage on saving throws against being blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, stunned, and knocked unconscious. Whenever this young false Hydra takes 25 or more damage in a single turn, one of its heads dies. If all of its heads die, the young false Hydra dies. At the end of its turn, it grows a new head. It grows a head for each of its head that died since its last turn. Unless it has regrown 8 heads. Okay, so it stops at 8. The young false Hydra regains 10 hit points for each head regrown in its way. Okay. Each head can have a reaction. Makes sense.
Yeah, it does get pretty wild because, it is a Hydra in that regard. Like, Hydras are known for the multiple heads and just they keep coming back.
What's very interesting, when you get to the fully grown false Hydra, is when you get to it having legendary actions and swallowing abilities and things like that.
Yeah, like eventually they get to a point where they just straight swallow players.
They get big enough to where they can just gulp you down.
Yeah. So
this says the false Hydra makes a bite attack against a large or smaller creature it is grappling. If the attack hits, that creature takes a bite's damage and is swallowed, and the grapple ends. While swallowed, the creature is blinded and restrained. It has total cover against attacks and other effects. It takes 1446 acid damage at the start of each of its each of the false Hydra's turns. If the false Hydra takes 40 damage or more in a single turn from a creature inside it, the false Hydra must succeed on a DC 15 con save or regurgitate all swallowed creatures, which fall prone in a space within 10 feet. Okay. If the false Hydra dies, the swallowed creature is no longer restrained and can escape from the corpse. Exiting prone, false Hydra can have a maximum of 2 large, 8 medium, 16 small, or 32 tiny creatures swallowed at any given time.
That's oddly specific.
Yeah, right. Don't go near a halfling village.
Whew. You get swallowed. There's like 13 other dwarves. You're like, oh hey, what's going on, guys?
We don't remember why we're here.
Yeah, like, how did we get here? What happened? Why is it all wet and warm?
That's a regular Isle of the Lotus Eaters situation on the inside.
Why does this water burn? Steve, stop drinking it.
I would love to see this in all kinds of things.
Oh man! And then when you get to the Elder Foss Hydra, it's when it really goes into the Song of Domination. So this says the Elder Foss Hydra emits a horrible, nightmarish howl. Oh wait, this is the same.
Yeah.
Never mind, this is the same. Oh wait, okay, so it goes a little bit more into the dominate person.
Yeah, that's some late game stuff right there.
Yeah. Ignore me.
Yeah, I think with a little bit of thought, though, I think that the right DM could really turn this into something that could really creep the hell out of your players, and then the resolution might be a battle at the end, but man, everything leading up to it, the false sleeves, the red herrings, the layers you can put into it, you could make it not be a factor for a period of time, and then it comes back, and just these little clues that you just sprinkle in as things are unfolding. There's something a lot to be said for, every session or two they see something that's a little bit off. Somebody says something that's a little weird, right? And then that slowly builds over multiple other storylines, and then it just culminates, and it all then makes sense.
Yeah. And even the occasional NPC that goes missing, but no one knows why.
Yep.
That NPC just doesn't exist.
Yeah. Someone doesn't show up for work or,
Yeah, like it's very common in false Hydra encounters where it's like, oh yeah, we're very understaffed here, but we've always just had 2 people running this entire wood mill. It's like,
yeah. And
you look over, it looks like the job for like 20 people. It's like, and he's got 2.
Well, yeah, and there's 5 aprons hanging on the hook, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just little things you can throw in there, and then that's a throwaway, right? Then they go about their business, but there's just all of these things that my wife and I have never had children, and you see the crib in the far corner, there's just all little things you could put in that will just creep the hell out of your players.
Yeah.
Maybe you have the carrier work in an inn or something, and they lead the people out at night. Maybe you catch them in the act or something.
Oh yeah.
What are you doing? You're like, oh, I'm just taking them outside. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the little things, and you can even have it try to prey upon one of the players.
Oh, absolutely.
Makes for a wild encounter in the earlier stages if they're able to get that player alone.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I need your help. You want to follow me into this dark alley?
I know so many players that
come to my van.
Can I tell you about essential oils?
But yeah, that'll finish up what I have for the False Hydra today. What would you give it as a fight score, Ryan?
I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Fuck that.
Oh yeah, that's a hard 10.
I think that might be the only time I've given a solid 10 for anything for the IRL fight score. Like, just nope.
I think so, yeah. You pretty much, you've rationalized it down for most of these monsters. You had a few 9s, I think, an 8 or 2.
Yeah, I mean, the gelatinous cube, like, I think I could really do something if I had a fire extinguisher.
I think I could do something if I had a spoon. Yeah, that's definitely a 10 for me. That's a get the fuck out of there situation.
What do you think, Greg?
Yeah.
No, thank you. I'm good.
Deal with this in real life, yeah.
Yep, I'm good. I'm full. I'm super busy. Can't fight it.
I think with that's a good time to go on our break and play our intermission.
Oh, that was the wrong one. I really should have looked at my soundboard.
Ahoy there! Yes, you! The one wearing the limited edition, nerdy franchise-related shirt. Do you like meeting in taverns with names like the Leaky Wench and the Wounded Willy? Do you regularly spend time with unintelligent barbarians or antisocial rogue assassins? And do you have a friend who always insists on being DM and making you last in initiative because you forgot to take snacks? Then you're in the right place. Join Sam and Orion every week for Dungeons and Talkshows, where they'll have monster deep dives, special guests, and spotlight homebrew creations made by the community. The boys are here to educate and entertain in all areas of role-playing games. Whether you're a new player or a hardened veteran, we are your people. Even the unintelligent, morons, and dunderheads can all enjoy and learn from our discussions. So come and join us on Dungeons and Talkshows on YouTube and all the usual podcasting apps. You won't regret it. But then again, we're nerds, so what do we know? Ahoy, hoy, nerds! You're listening to Dungeons and Talkshows with Sam and Orion.
And we are back.
Welcome back. Hope you all enjoyed that break.
As much as one can.
Get some snacks, get some water.
Coffee. The wife poking around to see what's going on the podcast, apparently. So, Craig.
All right. So, what do you have for? Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, you run your own podcast. Sam and I are a little curious. Like, what kind of stuff do you cover with your podcast?
So yeah, I have a Twitch channel, YouTube channel, and a podcast. So kind of, I've got kind of two different streams of content. So for the podcast, it's called Tabletop Talk from Third Floor Wars, and the focus is it's an interview show where I bring on creators within the tabletop space and people that are making the games that we play. Mostly RPG creators, though just recently I had Reiner Knizia, who's a very famous board game designer. And what makes my interviews a little bit different is instead of having people come on and talk about what they make, we really focus on the creative process. We focus on how and why they make things. So I try to pull back the curtain and to really try to understand how do they go from idea? Because everybody has ideas, right? How do they go from idea to what's next to now you can buy this thing? So yeah, you can get it on all your podcatchers. It's Tabletop Talk from Third Floor Wars. And I have just about to record episode 200.
Ooh, that's exciting. Congratulations.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Well done. How are you feeling about it?
I love the show. I mean, the show, I have I have a bad habit. I enjoy interviewing as much as I do anything. So I've got like 15 unreleased episodes because I just love, having people come on and record with me. I've learned a lot about how games are made and the different types of games. There's a ongoing joke with my patrons that it's a very expensive podcast because even though it's free, once you hear about these games and the passion behind these games, you end up buying these games. So the big joke is, if you're going to listen to Tabletop Talk, don't have your credit card near because you'll end up buying the game after hearing, about all the cool stuff being made. But it's also made me a bit of a sommelier as far as, different systems. So a lot of times, we did a little bit on before the break where, I hear, hey, I like this, I like that. And I'm very lucky that I've been exposed to so many different types of games that, there's a perfect game for everybody or a perfect game for what you're trying to run out there. And I have a lot of fun playing matchmaker between GMs, DMs, and players and saying, have you tried this game yet? And then they explore it and it opens up a whole new world for them.
Yeah, like we were kind of going back to earlier when you're recommending that game to Sam. I was like, that sounds exactly like the kind of game that he wants to run and has been wanting to run for a long time.
Yeah. I've been talking about wanting to run the SCP game for so long.
Good. I'm telling you, Sam, go get Delta Green. I promise. The system is not hard to learn. You're gonna find the combat mechanics in it really interesting. The mental aspect of it is very interesting. One of the things that I really love is that there's a very interesting emphasis on the toll it takes on these players. Like if you live a normal life and you're delivering mail every day or, studying disease, as a scientist, and you go encounter an eldritch horror, what does that do to your home life? what does that do to your relationship to your wife who you're lying to all the time? What does this do to your job, right? And how do you go back to postmarking things after you just got done killing the 5 people innocent people that witnessed this thing, but your job is to make sure that it is squelched, and you have done very bad things. It creates some very interesting moments, and it's a multi-layered game.
Very Men in Black.
But like surprisingly much darker.
Yeah, which is since my favorite genre of horror is that psychological, side of it. And I'm not too fan of the gory slasher, whatever. Nah, but I want to see how people are affected by these situations. How their minds have to adapt or crumble under this pressure.
Sam, I'm telling you, dude. The more we talk, like this, Delta Green is your game. Like this is your game.
I have it.
And go to Arc Dream Publishing or to Drive Through RPG. Buy the PDFs are not bad. They're cheap, and I'm telling you, man, you're gonna be like page 25, and I'm gonna get an IM from you, but like, holy shit, Craig, you were right, and you're gonna love it.
Bookmark, let's go.
But yeah, the other thing that I do, Ryan and Sam, is I have a Twitch and YouTube channel where I live stream actual plays. And I play a lot of these games that we've been talking about, stuff that is not Dungeons and Dragons, something that's a little bit different, stuff that doesn't get a whole lot of exposure. And the one thing that makes my streams a little bit different and what people enjoy about it is we actually play the game. So it's not just actors improving and the game is in the background. We are entertaining and interesting, but we also talk about the mechanics and we teach it. And one of the things that people enjoy that I love hearing about is they're like, hey, I've always wanted to run this game, but after seeing you playing it, I now understand the game and now I'm ready to run it for my players.
That's amazing right there, because when I first started learning how to DM, it's just like, okay, it's a massive undertaking because you have to learn to understand a lot of it. And listening to podcasts is like, okay, I'm kind of gleaning some of the rules as interactions happen. But what you're saying is like taking little breaks to explain the whole rules. Like most of these podcasts are out here trying to entertain first, but you're trying to get that, like, okay, we're trying to get people into this system, so we got to explain it a little bit in a palatable manner.
Yeah, and see it in action, right? It's the same way that we, a lot of times when we get a board game nowadays, we don't just read the rules. We'll go and watch people playing the board game because it just helps us to see it in action. It's one thing to read something, but to see it being played and have those mechanics exposed, I think can be very, very helpful. So yeah, you can go to Third Floor Wars on either Twitch or YouTube. You'll find me. And then, like I said, the podcast is Tabletop Talk.
Yeah, guys, please check him out. Just listen to him. Why wouldn't you want to hear more?
Speaking of other tabletop systems, we were just playing. You ever try the Ruby tabletop? Like a RWBY?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about. Tell me about it.
Okay, so Ruby it's based off of this. It's kind of an anime-ish American like CGI situation. Very over the top, very hype action. And it was created by this guy who was very notorious in the YouTube space for years for his work, like a Master Chief versus Samus fight. And he's just prolific when it came to fight choreography. And eventually, after a lot of his work with Rooster Teeth on Red versus Blue, making some of the best fights they had in the entire series, he got the green light to make his own show, which became Ruby. And you could look it up maybe after the podcast and check out like the Ruby food fight scene. It's never have you seen a food fight that's been so over the top, you know what I mean? And this tabletop is kind of it's an unofficial thing that a bunch of fans put together to kind of capture all that hype over the top action. And it's not even a D20 system, it's all D10s. So basically the players get to pick a power that they want for their character. And as long as the DM gives the green light. It can be basically anything. And if you want to do something with that power, you have to make what's called a semblance check. Yeah, he posted a little GIF in the Discord right there. And then on top of your power, you also get a weapon. Now, this weapon is going to have 2 default forms, a melee and a range. So you have these little transforming weapons. So it's like, okay, it's not just a scythe, it's a sniper rifle. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, like whatever. Like, okay, it's a broadsword, but it's also a crossbow.
Mm-hmm. Or like my character is, he has these dual chakrams that instead of having, you know, a ranged form, he just chucks them. Like,
very cool.
And uses his semblance to kind of like pull them back or teleport them back or whatever.
Yeah, my brother got really hyped because he made his ability cubify, which he just produces objects to just segmented cubes.
That's cool. That's cool.
I love the creativity already.
Yeah, so that kind of that over the top, almost like button mashing simulation that you're talking about. There's a really interesting fantasy game that you guys might dig called Slayers. And it's meant to be just this video game-esque, over the top, crazy ass, like your characters are badasses. And it's very simple mechanics. Anybody could learn it. And the different classes in it will blow your mind. So yeah, it sounds somewhat similar to this Ruby system. But yeah, it's very cool.
And you know, a lot of people or a lot of other DMs will be concerned very, very heavily about the balancing of their players. You know, they're very concerned with, you know, my players are too strong or my enemies are too strong or whatever. See, for me personally, like, I think it's funner if my players know they're a little strong, because then I get to vibe check them.
that is a lot of fun. Like, one of the things I like about the Ruby system, although it's very simple, like the whole PDF is like 57 pages. And part of that is a mini adventure, a monster section, some DMing stuff, and just a little bit of character creation. It leaves things very open for the players to create a very hype, simple character. And it has this rule of cool system where if the DM thinks that that's cool enough, well, guess what? You're adding another D10 to your rolls. And there's different stages of that. So as long as you keep the hype going, the more over the top things that you're doing, the momentum just kind of keeps going and going.
Yeah, and that's very similar to what you see in Slayers as well, which totally fits the genre. And Sam, I'm with you on this. I think that balance in RPGs is an illusion, and it's a smoke dragon that people chase, and I think it's a mistake. I don't think it exists, and too much time and effort is spent trying to do it. What really matters is the genre, right? So if I sit down with you and say, look, we're gonna play over the top, crazy, you know, Jet Li action, like nutty, like this is going to be balls out. Awesome. Great. Let's do it. My players have plot armor. Nothing's going to take them out. They're going to take out all of Cobra Commander and all of his minions. Like it's just going to be balls to wall. We're going to have a great time. Perfect. But if I say to you, hey, this is going to be a toughie, right? This is going to be grindy. It's going to be hard. You're fragile. And you're going to want to avoid combat because even fighting 4 goblins could take you out. That's all genre. And I think the key here for you is to not try to find one system to play those 2 very different games. Find systems that support both of them, right? There are games and systems and mechanics. Sounds like this Ruby is one of them that supports the first kind. Well, then play it, right? Learning a new system is not as hard as people think. Guess what? Spoiler alert. Learning other systems is a lot easier than learning D&Ds. You've already learned D&D, so you've done the hardest one. So learning these other ones is super easy.
It's like D&D is like English, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And find a system that supports the genre, right? And too often there's a mistake of trying to fit a genre with a system that it doesn't match. So what I'm loving, what I hear you talk about this Ruby, what I love about it is it sounds like they said, okay, this is the type of game we want to play. Now let's get some mechanics behind it so that it supports that type of play, and let's go have a great time, which is super cool.
I feel like people come to these RPG games to feel powerful.
Sure.
You know, we live human lives. We want to sling magic. We want to fight monsters, have these cool weapons. So why limit your players? You know, let them go all out. Let them be wild.
Yeah, absolutely. Like sometimes you'll get like the occasional player that's just like that doesn't really have that understanding of when enough is enough. But like I guess that part of the role of the DM is to kind of get them to dial it to where it needs to be. So like whether it's dialing them back or dialing the rest of the players up, gotta find that little equilibrium.
Well, you got to have that conversation in session 0, right? Because if you don't take care of it in session 0, it's going to become a problem later. So take care of it in session 0 and let's figure out what kind of game are we trying to play here.
Right.
And let's go from there. Let's get everybody on the same page before anybody even writes up a character.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to, ask your players, what are they hoping to get out of this? Yeah. What do they want their character to become? What do they want to do? What are they hoping for?
And what type of touchstones do you have, right? What are some movies or some books or some things that you're digging, right? That you're emulating, that you want to get that feel for? Take all of that in and then build around that.
Oh, absolutely. Like my brother, he's getting all hyped up because he wants to run a Power Rangers tabletop game. And it started off with just a casual conversation in the car one day. And that slowly evolved into, he's just like, Orion, I want to run a game, Power Rangers Las Vegas.
And Renegade Games has an amazing Power Rangers game that's built to run Power Rangers. Like it's licensed and everything, and it's really good. Your brother should check it out.
Yeah, he was looking into it, and he's trying to save up some money to buy the books. And a lot of people on the server are just like, Power Rangers Las Vegas, where do I sign up?
Exactly.
Yeah, we all were like, yeah, let's do it.
Renegade Games has the license for Power Rangers, which they do a good job with. They have My Little Pony, which I've never played, but I've heard good stuff about.
My Little Pony.
But what I do own that they have that I find very interesting is their G.I. Joe RPG.
Ooh,
there you go.
If you're as old as I am, that hits a huge nostalgia thing.
I was raised on the 80s stuff right
there. Oh
yeah,
it's fantastic. And they also have Transformers RPG as well.
Nice. Like, dude, growing up, I used to watch stuff like the Ninja Turtles, Transformers, even the Toxic Crusader, the cartoon version of the Toxic Avenger. How that got greenlit to be a show, I don't know.
When you had us watch that movie, it was just a consistent people going, "What the fuck? Yeah. What?
Yeah, what was the name of that company? Was it Trauma, or what's the name of the company that put out those movies? There's a whole series of movies that company put out in the 80s, and it was not made by people who are healthy. They were not well.
It was very much something else. Yeah. I remember hearing about this book that was made because of it, called I Learned Everything I Know About Filmmaking by Watching the Toxic Avenger.
Yeah.
It's just like, I gotta find that book. I gotta get a copy.
What a good basis to have,
Write a new book. I learned everything I know about DMing by watching the Toxic Avenger.
Nice.
It's got everything you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what do you have for news this week?
Honestly, we touched a little bit on the Kobold Press's new release with the Project Black Flag having a luck system, and it's kind of like I said before, tying into the kind of 5e compatible type stuff. And I didn't really find too much on it, other than the luck allows players to kind of fail forward and track and maintain their luck without having the DM having to be too really involved in that.
Right. And
it all kind of comes together as a bit of a reward system. So from what I can tell, it might be their way of revamping inspiration.
They definitely need to do something with inspiration.
Yeah.
I did see, while I was reading one of the Grim Hollows books, apparently they have something called Resolve and Corruption. And I had missed this when I started the campaign, so now I feel like it's a little late to integrate it, but like, maybe next time.
You might be able to swing it. I mean, I'm not going to be too one way or the other because I enjoy seeing new things from different systems, and like Grim Hollows just kind of like revamps 5e into something a little bit more horror-ish. And
it's hitting all the nice spots in my niche, you know.
Yeah, like it's fun in that regard. Although one of these days we're gonna have to get someone who knows how to run GURPS, because I am all in for that bulletproof nudity mechanic.
Wait, what? Huh? Bulletproof nudity.
Hey, Ryan, while we're here right now, while I'm thinking of it, clear your browser history for me real quick, would you? So, Sam, you're talking about that corruption mechanic that kind of got your like, ooh, what's that?
Yeah.
I just put into the Discord, and maybe we can share in the show notes. There's a game called Morkburg, which is a fantasy game that's built around a corruption mechanic. And it comes out of Sweden, and there's no other way to describe it. Excuse my language. It's the craziest shit you've ever seen.
Hell yeah!
It is off the wall, just nutty as hell, and to the point where you're reading it, you're going like, does anybody want to check in on Sweden? Is everybody in Sweden okay? Because this is some crazy ass shit.
And they're just repressed people.
Holy shit, this looks awesome.
Oh, it's incredible, Sam. It's an incredible game. It's very simple to learn, and it is nutty as hell. And it'll blow your mind when you read it. But if you want a fantasy game that is just crazy ass shit with corruption, you got to check it out.
It looks great.
The monster approaches. Drop black sludge. It seems cool. All right.
It's very cool.
Huh.
I'm liking the art style for the sheets.
Oh yeah.
Ooh. I'm going to put a link to this in the description.
You definitely need to, because it's built from the ground up to be very evocative, right? It's a very particular type of game. This is not your D&D 5e game, right? This is a very particular type of game, and it's got this corruption aspect to it, where I don't care. Like in 5e, your players are going to get better and better and better and stronger and bigger. In Morkborg, your players are going to get more effed up. Your characters are going to get more screwed up, and they're going to die. Right. And it's not going to end well for them. But man, you're going to have fun along the way. You're going to ride the character like you stole them, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. It sounds awesome.
I like the games that do stuff like that, because if you go in with the expectation of that, then you're just like, okay, it's all down here.
That's what we're doing.
All downhill from here. Let's go. As opposed to the typical player mentality where people get too attached to their character. And
they do, yeah.
Yeah, when death is the expectation, you walk into it and you're just like, okay, let's get this dumpster fire rolling.
Yeah.
And again, it brings us back to what we talked about, which is that session 0, right? Like as long as everybody knows, then get on the bus. We're going to go for a hell of a ride, right? What you don't want to do is crisscross that, which is play a game where someone is going to get attached to the character and they don't fully understand the type of game you're playing, or vice versa, right? But man, you align the right game with the right table with the right expectations, and that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, that's something that we're trying to do with our Discord group, because we got a bunch of players and everything, and getting like little games going here and there. Like I started doing the Ruby thing for our players recently. Although I will admit, the first session, it just ended up with a whole lot of bar antics, like not even getting on the air to do the quest. It's like, okay, sure, you guys have at it. But we're trying to get more things going in that direction. One of our players, he's been a DM for a while. He's trying to get back into it. He really wants to start a Gundam game. So it's like, okay. He was trying to be like, okay, I'm going to run Gundam 5e. And I'm like, no, that's not a good idea.
Hold on. I got the game for him. Hold on.
Oh, hell yeah.
Anyone knows it's Craig.
Yeah. Give me just 1 second. I'll look it up. Keep talking. Give me a second.
Yeah. Initially, like I had to talk him into using something that he showed me a while back. That it's a ultra modern, where they made it like 5th edition compatible, and it's interesting. It's just like I wasn't quite sure what he could properly use for what he was going for, but it's like I don't think Big Mech is going to be the kind of the 5th edition compatible concept.
Didn't you want to use ultra modern for something?
Yes, I do.
A Trigun run, right?
Yeah, like it takes it in a very kind of a post-apocalyptic modern setting, and I was going for a kind of like post-apocalyptic Deadlands-ish,
okay, with
like a very low magic. And ultra modern accommodates a lot of that stuff and kind of does away with the certain things as far as feats, but introduces a more like feat progression. Mm-hmm. And I like it for that, and I'm hoping to get that all ready to go at some point, but I'm going to have a different life balance before I can actually run the game.
Yeah, and when you're talking about mecha games, there's kind of 2 ways to go with it, right? There's the very simulationist aspect of it, where you want to really get into the nitty gritty. How many bolts are in the right arm? How many bolts are in the left arm? And like, I want to I want to know what heat exhaust system that I've got in my Gundam and stuff like that. And BattleTech RPG is perfect for that. So that's the one I would recommend. But if you want to get more into kind of the anime style, aspect of it, which is less about the machines, it's more about the people in the machines. And when you watch anime with big robots, it's really not about big robots, right? It's about the people driving the big robots. The one I recommend is Disaster Wing by a couple of Drakes.
I see what they did there, because like the most popular Gundam is Gundam Wing. So
this is a real, like, and again, it depends on what you want, right? This is not a simulationist robot battles game. But this gets into more of the other side of it, the world, the people that are in there. What are the implications of having giant robots fighting each other? And it's a beautiful game. It's super cheap on itch. Hopefully, again, I just shared the link in the Discord. It's a really, really great game that the first time you read it, you're not going to understand it and get it, but just let it seep in, soak it in a little bit. It's probably different than anything you've ever played before, and then just give it a run. And if this is the type of thing you're looking for, that aspect of this anime large robot Gundam aspect of it, there's no better game than Disaster Wing.
It looks like this is exactly what he's looking for based off the description here and what he's told me he wants to do with the game. So I'm definitely going to send that to him. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Great game made by some wonderful people. The people behind it, it's a couple, the Drakes, and they put out some really, really cool kick-ass games.
All right. I think it's about time we move into some of our homebrew. And if you don't mind, Sam, I'm willing to start this one off. Because
really quick, before we get to the homebrew, we do want to talk about the D&D movie.
Oh, yeah. that is...
It's getting good reviews.
That's what I hear.
Who saw that coming?
I was hoping.
I do believe we'll be planning to have a watch party. I was looking at the movie on Amazon Prime, and I could probably go ahead and rent it for the Discord. I think that'd be a good event.
Yeah, we do tend to do watch parties each week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we try to get more people involved, and actually, like I think about 4 of the people that we've had on the show as guests end up joining the server because they just had a lot of fun when we were doing the show, and we just do little things with our community we're putting together.
Building.
So for our listeners, if you're interested in the movie, be prepared for next week. We'll probably have a little section where we talk about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I'm hoping it's what I'm expecting, which
from what I've seen from the trailers, it doesn't seem like they've done a bad job.
I'm optimistic.
It's at least got my attention. Yeah, I'll give it a chance. Yeah, definitely. Go ahead and start us off with what you brought today.
Okay, so the Mutato. I'll have to put a picture in the Discord right there for you in a moment, but I'll read it off as we go. So
potato matata.
It's considered a potion, I guess, but it's like this strange potato with like purple, like kind of tentacle things budding out of it, and kind of like a purplish swirls and whatnot. It says here, a character that consumes the change-fueled purple fruit gains 2d4 plus 2 hit points and rolls a d10 on the unripe mutato table. Consuming or administering a mutato takes an action. So it's a lot like a potion for typical purposes. And you got a d10's worth of effects here. 1, you regain 1d10 additional hit points. 2, your eyes turn bright yellow. Moreover, you gain dark vision for 8 hours. 3, your breath smells like spring flower petals and you gain advantage to charisma checks for an hour.
Nice.
4, you start sweating copiously and you gain the slippery condition for 1 hour. I have never heard of the slippery condition.
I have. There was I was doing I guess this is kind of a spoiler to our players, but I was doing a monster sheet and they have a slippery ability.
The slippery ability, huh?
Basically, it means you kind of secrete like water or like a gooey substance. It makes you hard to hold on to.
Ah, okay. So it's like a greased pig situation.
Nice.
Posting the thing in here is a good idea.
Yeah. Now, for number 5, your eyes turn bright green, and additionally, you gain dark vision for 1 hour. Okay, so that's the 1 hour version of the dark vision. 6, your tongue turns bright purple until the end of the day. Everything tastes extremely bitter and spicy.
Sounds horrible.
Bitter and spicy? I'm down for spicy, but like you make everything bitter? Like
I hate anything bitter. I like a coffee, I just can't.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste, I suppose. Like some people are all about it. I'm not. Number 7, you start sweating a bright yellow, foul-smelling mucus and gain the slippery condition and have disadvantage on charisma checks for the next hour.
Brutal.
This is hilarious. Number 8, you can't speak for the next minute. Whenever you try, greasy purple bubbles puff out of your mouth.
What the fuck?
Number 9, you emanate a smelly purple fog cloud. See the fog cloud spell for stats. And number 10, your mouth fills up with slimy burning liquid. You take 1d8 acid damage and can't speak for the next minute. For the duration, you may, as a bonus action, choose one creature within 15 feet of your mouth, hurling a yellow glob of caustic goo at them. That creature must succeed on a dex save or take a d6 of acid damage.
Damn.
Oh God. Interesting.
Shout out to Reddit user Big Empty Blue for this one. Too bad. Most of the time when we do these, they have like a little Patreon where we can send people to.
Pretty cool looking.
But yeah, if anyone's interested in that, please go check them out.
r/Big Empty Blue.
Yeah.
Nice.
I thought that was kind of an amusing item for the week.
I like it. I would give that on a D20. I give it a 10.
Okay, distinctly average.
How about a D20 for fun though?
Yeah.
Ooh.
There's a lot of fun to be had with that homebrew.
I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 because like it's really fun. It heals. There's drawbacks. There's benefits. It's kind of silly. It's goofy.
Right.
It doesn't hit that 10 for me just because like I got a homebrew that I've been working with an old DM with Auntie Bobble's Magic Candies. You remember the
absolutely. How could I forget?
Oh, that good times when the bard becomes Johnny Two Dicks for about 3 days.
Oh man,
those candies were wild. That campaign got oddly sexual for like no reason.
Look, I can't say I was surprised, but I was not prepared.
Yeah, like You guys crashed a wedding. You started seducing the bridesmaids after a stellar performance on stage with the music.
My warlock was amazing.
You guys ended up impressing Dionysus because I was going with Greek gods for that campaign.
Nice.
Yeah, we got a boon of Dionysus. It was great.
Well, leading up to that, there was a dance off with a mime, and the bard danced the mime out of a career. The campaign fizzled out, but my headcanon is that they just kind of left the life of adventuring and just started a band.
Yep, it just became a traveling band.
It got very wild. There was one point where one of the players became a woman for a day and then just holed himself up in a hotel room doing questionable things.
Oh,
and then
no.
When the Dragonborn opens the door and catches him in the act, he flings himself out a third floor window.
It's me. I was a Dragonborn.
And hopefully you didn't send him to Florida. Too soon?
No.
Nobody wants to go to Florida. Sorry to our Florida listeners, but you know where you are.
No, we're not.
You know what you are.
You don't want to transform into a woman and go to Florida.
Well, you see, the thing about Florida is they done fucked up. They're below sea level.
Rest in peace, Florida.
Can't trust being below sea level. Just can't.
Today I have brought something from GM Binder once again.
All right.
I've gone to them a few times for, the Noodle of Mending. That's a classic one. There's a few weapons that I got from them. Today is another magical weapon, but a dart this time. This is called the Bleeding Bouquet. I scratched myself. So it says it's a rare weapon, requires attunement.
Right.
Composed of a unique wood from the bleeding rose, whose dark wood stem turns into bright red roots. These darts seem to have been grown rather than crafted. The Bleeding Bouquet typically consists of a collection of 6 darts. A dart from the Bleeding Bouquet has a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls. When a creature that is not undead or a construct is struck by a Bleeding Bouquet dart, it roots itself into the creature, requiring an action to be removed. At the start of the creature's turn, they take 1d4 necrotic damage, as the dart siphons out some of the creature's blood or other biological fluids. As the dart siphons more and more from the creature, the blossom on the palm of the dart begins to bloom. Once it has dealt at least 10 points of necrotic damage, the blossom is fully bloomed. At the start of the creature's next turn, it must make a DC 14 con save. As the dart, having converted the siphon fluid into a potent poison, injects the creature with the poison. Creatures who fail the save take 5d4 poison damage, or half as much on success.
I can see where this one's kind of coming from. Like, it makes me think of Kurama from Yu Yu Hakusho.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
Like the whole rose aesthetic.
Additionally, once a dart from the Bleeding Bouquet has injected its poison, the target, it wilts and becomes a typical +1 dart. If a dart is removed for injecting the poison, it reverts to its original state. Okay.
No one really uses darts, so it's nice to see something that is kind of along those lines.
That's cool. You could sneak somebody with this dart. You know what I mean? They're like, "What the fuck was that?"
Yeah, it seems
must have been the wind
too. Like I feel like you could probably slip this in most fantasy RPGs.
Yeah. I like it. It seems, it is just a dart, but versatile, I think. Not many, enemies I think are going to even notice being hit by a dart.
Well, I'll give that a 9 out of 10 for sneakiness.
Yeah, I'll give it a 9 out of 10.
I'm appreciating the dart situation, so it's like that.
I do always kind of like the small thrown weapons, the precision, things like that. Kunai's dart, shurikens.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is all I have for the homebrew today.
All right. Craig, anything that you want to leave us with as we wrap up the show?
No, I don't have a homebrew, but the one thing that I want all the DMs out there to think about is a really neat concept that's in a fantasy game called Forbidden Lands, and it ties a little bit to what Sam and you guys were talking about, and it's an idea that I really have latched onto for magical items. And the idea is that in this Forbidden Lands fantasy setting, the magical items are very, very powerful. Like, no joke, like you have one and you're a badass and you can do badass things. But every one of them has a cost associated with them. And the example I'll leave with you, which you could quickly turn into a homebrew in any system, is just recently I gave the players in my Forbidden Lands game a flute. And when you play this flute, it creates a sonic bubble around the player that allows them to pass through solid objects.
Ooh.
Which, when you think about it, is incredibly powerful, right? The ability to walk through walls, walk through locked doors, walk through anything, right? But like everything in Forbidden Lands, everything has a cost.
Right.
When you play this flute, everybody near you that can hear this has a irrational Boromir level compulsion to take the flute from you and to possess this flute. So what I'd like for all the DMs out there to think about is come up with a magic item that is incredibly powerful, that does amazing things, but has an unbelievable drawback. A sword that does incredible damage, but slowly lowers permanently the equivalent of an empathy score on the player. So they slowly become a cold-blooded, feelingless character every time they use this. So they're not going to use it every time. But when they bring this thing out, when the big bad is there and they need to pull out this blood-sucking, soul-sucking sword, they will do it, but they will pay the cost as they go. So that's the homebrew seed I'll leave for everybody is think about a magical item that is incredibly powerful, but has a huge cost associated with it, and watch your players wrestle on whether they really want to play this flute or if they really want to draw the sword.
Yeah, like I really like that kind of thing because having drawbacks to items and just it's a lot of fun. Like when I mentioned the candies from the Auntie Bobble thing earlier, when I run that, every candy has for so many doses, you have to make a con save against being addicted. And once you get an addiction, there's withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah.
And some of the withdrawal symptoms include random spontaneous effects that you might get from the candies. And the higher grade candies will last longer and have higher doses. And the highest grade, it has permanent effects.
Nice.
Like in Sam's case, he had a character that ended up with like a 3-foot pocket dimension in his nostrils.
Yep. My Dragonborn had my Dragonborn had a pocket dimension nose, I guess.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and like, think about how much more fun that is than a cursed item, right? Yeah. Cursed items suck. Everybody hates cursed items, like cursed items suck. But if you give somebody something that is incredibly powerful that they really have to decide, do I bring out the scepter that will cause an earthquake that will split the earth and have all these enemies fall in?
Mm-hmm.
But gives every one of my players, my party members, a disease that can only be cured magically. Like giving your players that dilemma, that powerful item with that curse associated with it, it can be a lot of fun. So that's my contribution.
That reminds me of the situation we had in our game recently. They've been on this mission to kind of discover this information, discover what happened to this group. And right when they get to the cusp of everything's coming together, we're finally learning what happened to them. One of their team members gets cursed, and this curse stays until they remove it magically, or he dies, or he transforms.
Stonk is slowly dying.
Yeah.
We also had a similar situation with a magic item, very similar to what you were saying, because once our resident strongman of the group gets in a fight and he pulls that sword, like he has to kill the target after he's hit them with it.
Right.
Once he's hit.
Yeah, he gets very, very reckless, revenge.
Yeah. he has to kill the person who's hit him.
Stuff like that can create amazing moments. So spend some time thinking about it. Don't be lazy and just give him a cursed item.
I love the trade-off situations, because really you could reflavor any item that you find. It's just like, okay, it's this. There's a drawback.
But this. Exactly.
But this.
Yeah, it can be something mundane to something severe, or it could just be something silly. It's like, okay, here's what this item does. It's great. You got boots of flying, except when you wear them, they transform your entire attire and turn you into the opposite gender, and you're quite a spectacle to behold to all who see. So you could just, depending on the character, that could be extremely embarrassing to them.
Yeah, here's boots of flying that only go up.
I know a few DMs that I work with closely that they do exactly that kind of stuff. One of my favorites of just random ass magic items that my friend has made, the Wand of Wanding. It's a wand that just creates other wands that don't do anything.
Nice.
And if you destroy the original wand, one of the other wands that was created becomes the new original.
All right. I think with that, we're good to end. As always, I am Sam, Starboy on Discord.
And I'm Orion, Serrated Cypress on the Discord and stuff. And we will be posting on Wednesdays now, since that gives our editor a little bit more time to do things and more breathing room for the rest of us.
What's our editor's name?
Fenico.
Yeah, Fenico.
Fenico, you are a champion. The work you do, I have to record and edit my own podcast. You have spoiled these boys by you doing their editing. You are an unsung hero. So thank you for doing the work you do.
Yeah, thank you, Fenico. It's spectacular work.
Thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for listening to Dungeons and Talkshows, brought to you by the Nerd Militia. Check us out on Patreon or Discord if you want to support us. And if you want to get more Nerd Militia content, you can follow us on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, and YouTube. Or really any of the usual podcasting platforms. But as always, we're nerds, so what do we know?